Good afternoon and welcome to the development panel of Allerdale Borough Council. My name is Lee Jardine and I'm a Democratic Services Officer, and for the purposes of this meeting, I'm also the host. I will be assisting the committee with the use of technology to manage the process of the meeting. I will not have any control of the meeting, and the meeting will not begin until instructed by the chair. This meeting is currently being live streamed on YouTube and a recording will be made available afterwards. Everyone has indicated they're attending the meeting has now joined and the meeting will be locked. Shortly, I'll hand you over to the chair, but first, introductions. Can I ask the attendees to introduce themselves, starting with the members? Councillor Armstrong.
Councillor Cadell Armstrong, Harrington and Salterbeck Ward Councillor. Good afternoon.
Councillor Coburn.
Sorry, I had trouble with the mute there. Councillor Nikki Coburn. Good afternoon.
Councillor Daniels.
Good afternoon, Councillor Daniels.
Councillor Fairbrother.
Good afternoon, Councillor Fairbrother.
Councillor Granger.
Good afternoon, Councillor Malcolm Granger.
Councillor Kirkbride.
Good afternoon, Councillor Kirkbride, Mayor Port North Ward.
Councillor Lynch.
Good afternoon, Councillor Elaine Lynch.
Councillor Mumby. You're on mute, Councillor. We'll come back to you. Councillor Semple.
Good afternoon, Councillor Randy Semple.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith does have some IT issues. We'll come back to that one as well. Councillor Tyson.
Good afternoon, Councillor Alan Tyson.
And we'll go back to Councillor Mumby.
Good afternoon, Councillor Mumby, Cockermouth.
Thank you. Councillor Smith. Okay, we'll go to the officers. We'll move on. Councillor Smith is present on the meeting. Simon Sharp.
Good afternoon. My name is Simon Sharp. I'm the Planning and Building Control Manager.
Sharon Sewell.
Good afternoon. Sharon Sewell, Head of Governance and Monitoring Officer.
Thank you. We also have Johnny from our communications team on the meeting. Thanks very much all for your introductions. Please can members remain on mute throughout the meeting unless intending to speak. To speak, please can members use the raised hand icon and only speak when requested by the chair. To vote on items, the chair will ask myself to go through each member alphabetically. Each member will reply with their name and I vote for, against or abstain. So I'll now hand you over to the chair to formally start the meeting. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. As previously stated, my name is Nikki Coburn and I am Chair of the Development Panel for Allerdale Borough Council. You've been introduced to the members and officers in attendance today. The planning application under consideration today will be decided by the members of the panel who are councillors, and we are supported by the officers in attendance. Moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, there's no minutes. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Lee, do we have any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Daniel Horsley.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Please use the raise hand function if you wish to make a declaration. If it becomes apparent during consideration of any of the during the consideration of the application that you may have an interest, please declare at that point. Lee, could you confirm that we've got no raised hands?
That's correct, Chair. No raised hands.
Agenda item 4, do we have any questions, please?
No questions received, Chair.
Right, moving on to the application. It's planning application OUT/2020/0013, 47 High Seaton. Could we move on to the officer, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. So this application is for a site in Seaton. go through the slides in a minute, but members will see from the report that it is an outline application. So that's for consideration of the principle of the development of the dwelling, but also that access is not reserved for subsequent approval. So you are considering the access arrangements today, which consists of a single vehicular access onto the adopted highway, and also landscaping is not reserved for subsequent approval. So landscaping is due for consideration today. That they were included as part of the amendments to the application following officer advice. So the landscaping, and we'll see this in a second on the slides I'll share with you, includes the retention of the majority of the frontage hedge on the site, the exception being the area needed for removal to gain access onto the adopted highway. There's also, as you'll see in the slides in a second, a new hedge to be planted between the site and the existing dwelling. Single vehicular access, as I say, is directly onto the road. There's not a reliance to go through the story development alongside. So what I'll do, members, is I'll just share the slides with you. Just before I do, the reason this application is before you today as members is a call-in by a referral by Councillor Sanith, one of the ward members for Seaton. The reasoning being that, as members will be aware from the officer's report, Seaton is identified as part of the principal centre, including Workington, and there, as you will have seen from previous applications before members for Seaton, there is a feeling in Seaton amongst the constituents that there is enough development in Seaton in terms of its overall proportion of development that is taking in comparison to the rest of the principal centre of Workington. So I'll now share my screen with you and go through the slides. Can members see these slides, please? Nod, please.
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Councillor. So this is the application site. You can see there's existing dwellings to the east. Just for members' benefit of where we are, we're in the north east corner of Seaton. So this is the road going out towards Broughton Moor and Derwent Forest, the old R&AD, well, what's called the dump. So that's the site, that's the context of the site. So the Seaton village centre is to the southwest. This development is the recently completed the Story Homes development, which is accessed through here. You'll see in a moment, there is a Story public open space in this area. And there are also, as you'll see from the photographs, power lines that cross in this alignment here. And there is actually a path through the public open space that comes from the road and loops up to here. So this plan shows, as you recall from what I was saying a few moments ago, access is to be considered as part of this outline application. And this is the access plan. So you can see the point of access here. You can see that it's centrally located within the site. This is the site. This rectangle, as you will see in a moment, is a pylon, a high voltage electricity pylon, which is within the site. So you can see the views here. This is the view northeast, heading towards Broughton Moor. You are within a 30-mile-an-hour limit here, 30 miles an hour limit. And as you head towards Broughton Moor, the road then transfers from about this point here to a 40-mile-an-hour limit. There are dwellings just out of shot here on the south side of the road, and the no limits, the 60-mile-an-hour, doesn't start until after the end dwelling on the south side of the road, so quite a distance northeastwards. So this shows that point of access. And the landscaping plan, this is the retention of the existing frontage hedge that you'll see in the photographs in a second. So you can see there's only a small segment to be removed for the access because you have a verge to enable the visibility splays to be formed. So these arrows are the visibility splays, and because of the verge, it means that you can retain the vast majority of the frontage hedge. And this is a new hedge to be planted between the application site and the end terrace dwelling, the existing dwelling to the northeast. And this, just to give you that context, the end dwellings of the Storey homes. Visually, as you'll see on the slides in a minute, although it looks like there is a gap between the site and the Storey Homes development, this is actually part of the Storey Homes public open space, so quite suburban in character and not a countryside gap. And it also has the power lines. There's this one, which you can see plotted, is the high voltage power line, but there is actually a second line that crosses here too. The site was outside of the 1999 settlement limits, but the 1999 local plan is obviously is now obsolete. It's gone. It's not part of the development plan. The Part 2 local plan was adopted, as you know, by yourselves in July. So this red line is the new settlement limit for Seaton. The hatched area is the extent of the Storey's built development, although it includes public open space here. And this here is the site under consideration today. So you can see the existing dwellings are in the settlement limit. The site is completely within the settlement limit. And you can see that with the development of the Storey Homes site, although the site was previously considered to be open countryside development and actually resisted by the council on that basis, that was because the 1999 settlement limit ended here. There wasn't the Storey Homes development, and it was very much an outlying bit of sporadic development along the road. But as you can see, with the development of the Storey Homes site, it no longer is. It's actually an infill between the Storey Homes development and this little row of terraced houses here. And that's reflected in the 2020 Part 2 settlement limit. This is the view west, southwest, going down towards the village. You can see the verge here. It's a 30-mile-an-hour limit. You'll see there are lighting columns here. There's a pavement on the other side of the road. This shows, trying to see, the site is beyond these evergreen trees here. So it's the evergreen trees form the southwestern boundary of the site, with the pylon just within the site. The area in the foreground is the Storey's, part of the Storey's public open space. The mini dumper truck is actually on the footpath. This is all now, I went there this morning again, this is all now complete. So this path is now complete, and all this area is seeded and actually is appears as grass now. So that, and there is a local equipped area of play, a playground just out of shot to the left here. So that's the site context from the Story Homes side. This is the existing visibility of the existing, and you can see the mirror, and that is quite blind because of the wall and then the hedge in the opposite direction. So remember, members, this is not the proposed visibility, because the new site entrance will be midway along the site and will have the benefit of the verges, which this existing dwelling does not have the benefit of. This is looking across the site, so you can see it's an overgrown site. There's those evergreen trees along the southwestern boundary. You can see the relationship of the Story Homes beyond. That's the base of the pylon carrying the high voltage lines. You'll notice, members, from the officer's report that the infrastructure provider, Electricity North West, they don't have any objections to the scheme. They were consulted as part of this proposal. You can also see, because of the extent of the site, that there is clearly scope for the siting of a dwelling away from the base of that pylon. So this is another view. Your context again, these are the evergreen trees on the southwest boundary. That's the frontage hedge. You can just see the lamp standard, the lighting columns on the road to give you a context. And you can see in the background the Story's public open space. This is actually standing on the existing driveway of the existing dwellings. The existing dwelling is just out of shot to the left, and this is the frontage hedge, typical field hedge, but not protected because it's obviously bordered by, it serves a dwelling, so it's not a countryside hedge in the legal sense of the word, but it is field species, hawthorn, blackthorn, that sort of mix. Another view with the existing driveways, the existing dwelling. That won't be the driveway for the new dwelling. This is the site here. You can see the screening on the northwestern side and the southwestern side, and the pylon in the corner. Members will know that there were coal workings in and around the site and on the Story Home site. So you'll see the environmental health recommended conditions about contamination. So the land many years ago was previously developed, although obviously you can see it's greened over time. So now we are north east of the site. So the site is just along this frontage here. You can just see it, the frontage, and obviously you can see the pylon. So you can see we're inside the 30-mile-an-hour limits, which start here. You can see right in the background the Solway, so you know you can see you're on the elevated land, and the Story access is just on the brow there. So the entrance would be here, so you can see the good visibility that's afforded. So there is nothing late on the list. The conditions are before members, and as I say, the officer's recommendation is to grant approval subject to conditions. Obviously, of so single dwellings, so you fall well below the thresholds, things like affordable housing or the enhanced accessibility, the M42 accessibility in Part 2. So policies SA3, SA5, SA33 of the local plan Part 2 not applicable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Simon. Lee, do we have any speakers?
Hi, Chair. Thank you. We don't have any speakers. However, we do have a letter to be read out on behalf of the agent, Daniel Addis. So I'll pass you back over to the planning officer. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Chair. So I'll read this letter out verbatim. It's from Daniel Addis, who is the agent for the applicant. It reads as follows. Good afternoon, members, and thank you for the opportunity to address the committee today. The application proposes the erection of a dwelling with approval sought for access and landscaping. The application site is a large, underused area of garden ground, too large for the applicant to maintain. The site is well contained with established trees and hedges to 3 of the boundaries and number 47 High Seaton along the eastern boundary. Whilst the detailed design of the house is a reserved matter, we are confident that we will be able to propose a high quality design in keeping with the area. Historically, an application for a dwelling was refused on the site as the site was considered to be outside of the settlement. However, since then, planning policies have changed with the adoption of the new local plan, and consequently, the site now falls within the settlement boundary. We have worked with Cumbria County Council to address highway safety issues, and we have now been able to demonstrate that safe access can be secured. We believe that small sites like this provide an important contribution to the overall housing supply, and we are pleased to see the application is supported by officers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Simon. Right, members, do we have any questions? It's to the planning officer. Councillor Fairbrother.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few considerations, Simon. I don't think they're in the conditions, but I was just wondering what would be considered a safe distance from the pylon, and will there be some sort of barrier between the garden and the pylon? I don't know enough about that, but it does seem to be rather a dominant feature. I'm just wondering if there's anything we could put in the conditions about that.
Thank you, Councillor. No, it's a very relevant question, and it's certainly one that officers were, very well aware of at an early days, because it is a high voltage. It's an infrastructure pylon. It's obviously pretty tall, and we were wondering about whether there were particular distances for topple, for example, or indeed for health and safety of future occupants. So we had to seek advice from the infrastructure provider, Electricity Northwest. They, quite frankly, came back with the fact that there was no set distance from the infrastructure. We also checked whether there was any other regulation that applied, for example, through the Health and Safety Executive. And there isn't. I'm not going to pass comment on the rights or wrong of that, but all I can advise you members today is that there isn't actually anything precluding a residential plot having a pylon within it, and there being any particular distance for separation for health and well-being of occupants, or a topple distance, for example, of the pylon. Access can be gained to the pylon from the other side, through the Stories development, because it's right in the corner, and there'll obviously be covenants anyway for access and maintenance. And it obviously brings the development of a dwelling within the plot would bring a residential dwelling nearer to that particular pylon than there is currently dwellings. The Story dwellings are further away. The existing dwelling, 47 High Seaton, is further away. But as I say, we can only, and I know this is probably the answer that you've had before with the other consultees, is we can only go by what the consultees have said, and they do not object or have any further comment to make on this application.
Thank you very much, Simon.
Excellent question, Councillor. Councillor Lynch.
Yes, two things. The trees on the southwest and northwest, boundaries, I presume they'll be staying.
Thank you, Councillor. They're not shown on the landscaping plan as staying. So they're not shown on the, because the landscaping plan includes retention of the frontage hedge, the one on the road, so that would be the southeastern boundary. And also it shows the new planted hedge going in between the existing dwelling 47 and the site, so that's the north eastern boundary. I'd expect those hedges, those trees to be retained, albeit I recognise that they are tall trees, and they could make the site quite claustrophobic if they retained at their existing height. So I think the answer to your question, Councillor Lynch, is you have to assume that they will not be retained because they're not on the landscaping plan, albeit and landscaping was to be determined at this stage, albeit I think officers would be seeking, when further detailed matters are submitted, for there to be some form of soft landscaping on those sides.
Yes,
they are not, just to add, they're not obviously boundaries to the countryside, because beyond both boundaries there is electricity infrastructure and the Stories public open space. So they're not sensitive boundaries in that sense of the word.
But it would be removing trees. So if that was the case, could a condition be put on that if they were removed, then some suitable planting would replace them?
If members considered that a requirement to grant permission, you could. I would hesitate to state that the requirement was due to the sensitivity of the landscape of the site, because I don't believe it is a sensitive landscape. If members considered that it was required to maintain the balance between the natural and built environment in that locality, I think that would be more of a reasonable reason for being given. I can go back to the photos if members want to look at that in more detail. As you can see, officers don't consider that to be a reasonable requirement, but it's a subjective matter, you know, under policy S33. So you're well within your rights, members, to consider that a requirement that would be a condition which would be on the lines of, notwithstanding the submitted landscaping plan, details shall be provided before development commences of the planting of the southwestern and northwestern boundaries, and no trees on those boundaries shall be felled until appropriate details have been agreed in writing by the local planning authority. Something on those lines, Councillor Lynch, would be a condition to meet the tests.
Thank you. And my second question, on the conditions on page 14, number 1, the layout, scale and appearance of the reserve matters. Now, if they were not, if they were submitted and they were not up to what the planning, what you yourselves as planners would accept, would that come back to the panel? And could these matters be called in or not?
So, two answers to the two questions. First of all, they wouldn't automatically be referred to panel as a reserve matters approval. I think, without wanting to prejudice the process, it's not normally something that we would take back to panel just because the outline went to panel. We wouldn't necessarily just take the reserve matters to panel. That's the first point. A reserve matters application, the Constitution allows reserve matters applications to be called in to panel. So the application for the layout, scale and appearance, that would be publicised in the normal way with the 21 days, the site notice with neighbours consulted, and if a member called in the application within 21 days of the weekly list being published, which is what the Constitution says, then it would be brought before members for consideration. And obviously, under the current Constitution, that could be any member, not necessarily a ward member.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Granger, you're next, and then Councillor Fairbrother with her second question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, reading through all these papers and listening to Simon, all these issues have been dealt with by officers. So I know I'll get me head in my hands, Madam Chair, but I would like to recommend approval as per officers' recommendations and conditions.
Okay, Councillor Granger.
Can I just clarify, Chair, before that, Councillor Granger's putting that motion forward, is that as purely as per the officer's report, so that's not including any condition which Councillor Lynch, she wasn't suggesting, but was querying me about? It's purely as per the officer's report?
Yes.
Thank you,
Simon.
Right, thank you. Before I ask for a seconder for that motion, Councillor Fairbrother, did you have another question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Chair. It's linked really to Councillor Lynch's question. I noticed that a new hedge is going to be planted between number 47 and the new site, and but it doesn't actually specify what that hedge would be made up of. I noticed the hedge to the front, although it's a bit of a scruffy looking thing, it's a very mixed hedge. It's a very traditional hedge. I think the trees are mentioned in the report. I was just hoping that the hedge that was going to be planted, the new hedge, would be of that traditional type of trees, hawthorn, blackthorn, crabapple and ash, that kind of thing. Is that a condition or is that taken as read? That's what I wanted to know, what the officer knows about that new hedge.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. No, it's in the submission, so it is a mixed field species hedge.
That's the new hedge that's going to be planted. That's
correct, on
right.
The north eastern boundary with number 47.
Thank you, because obviously that matches in then, doesn't it, really well? Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Lynch, is this a third question or did you forget to drop your hand? Ah, right, you forgot to drop your hand. That's fine, that's fine. Can we have a seconder, please, for Councillor Granger's motion? Councillor Semple.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yes, I'd second that motion. I think it's a sympathetic development and I agree with the officer's recommendations.
Okay then, without much more ado, Lee, can we go on to the vote, please?
You just give me one moment, Chair, please. Thank you.
Yeah, he's just checking as to whether or not Councillor Smith actually has access at the moment. So it's whether or not he can vote or contribute. Councillor Lynch.
Can I just ask, does this that we're voting on include the revised condition that I mentioned?
Yeah.
I didn't, that wasn't what I understood.
I understood from when sorry, councillors, when I queried Councillor Granger that it did not.
All right.
When I asked that specifically of Councillor Granger, I said, is it explicitly as per the officer's report without the Councillor Lynch condition? And my
yes, I can confirm that. You made it quite clear. So it was without the extra condition, Councillor Lynch.
So if I wanted the condition in, what would I have to do?
So, Councillor Lynch, if you wanted the condition in, you would vote against the motion, because you're not voting to refuse the application or just voting against the motion.
Also, sorry to interrupt, Chair, Councillor Lynch, you could amend the motion.
I would like to amend the motion, please, that I agree with the officer's recommendation with the conditions, but with an added condition of link to S33 in the local plan, where the landscaping on the southwest and northwest, if the trees are removed, then they must be replaced with some sort of buffering that you spoke of, Simon.
I just want to clarify with Lindsay that we already had a seconder for the motion, Lindsay, and I don't know whether we can actually take the amendment after we've had the seconder. Can't hear Lindsay. I don't know whether the members are hearing Lindsay.
No.
Mute. Lindsay, can you hear us? Oh, we can't hear you.
Chair, if it makes any, I confess.
Lindsay, if you can relay it to me via the normal channels, I can relay it back to members.
Sorry, what were you going to say, Councillor Semple? Anyway,
Chair, I was going to say I made an assumption that it was Councillor Lynch's that we were voting on the whole thing. Just to clarify that, sorry.
Sorry, just to, you were wanting to clarify that it either excluded Councillor Lynch's or included Councillor Lynch's amendment.
I was seconding the motion with the assumption that it included Councillor Lynch's, so apologies for that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We just had clarification from Lindsay, just for the benefit of the public. Lindsay is the Deputy Monitoring Officer, so she's provided the advice. And the advice is, if the seconder of the motion is happy with that amendment, then we can take the amendment. Yeah. So, Councillor Granger, just as the councillor putting forward the motion, you were happy with the amendment.
I'm happy with the amendment, Simon, yes.
And then I think it was Councillor Semple who was seconding the motion. And Councillor Semple, you're happy with the amendment? If you can just confirm to the camera, please.
Yes, I can confirm that, Chair. I am happy with that. Thank you.
So the motion which members are going to vote on, just for clarity, is to grant permission subject to conditions as per the officer's report, with the condition as amended and suggested by Councillor Lynch, which is that for the north western boundaries and the southwestern boundaries of the site, where there is currently a tree line, that the condition stipulates that notwithstanding the submitted landscaping plan, there will be further details submitted of soft natural landscaping for those two boundaries before development commences, and that landscaping should be approved by the council's local planning authority, and no trees on those two boundaries shall be removed until those details are approved, and obviously the landscaping shall be implemented as per those approved details on those two boundaries. Thank you, Chair.
Excuse me, do you need a seconder for the amendment? Sorry, Chair, because I was going to second that amendment, but if you don't need it, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Yeah, the Lynch's advisor monitoring officer, as long as the proponent of the motion and the seconder are happy, which they have both confirmed, then we can go to the vote with that amendment.
Right. Before we go to the votes, Councillor Lynch, you've got your hand up. Ah, right. No.
Sorry.
Right. If we go to the vote for the amendment.
Councillor Smith.
Sorry, didn't see that. Councillor Smith, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Apologies.
Can we in future meetings can we get the business sorted before a councillor moves the approval or refusal. Again, we went into this is being broadcast on YouTube, but it's very amateurish. I think we should wait until the people have a chance to speak to put in other recommendations before we move to the vote. I think it's one for the future, Chair.
Councillor Smith, I think people were invited to put their hands up and ask questions, and you were indeed the last person to put your hand up, which unfortunately I missed. I'm sorry about that. But I think everybody had asked all the questions, and I parked the motion until everybody else had asked their questions. And then Councillor Semple, when I asked if there was a seconder for the motion, Councillor Semple put his hand up. So I think it was fairly clear, in my opinion. Okay, Lee, could we go back to the vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members, as already explained, I'll just go through the list. If you can repeat, just say your name and whether you vote for, against, or abstain. We'll start with Councillor Armstrong.
Councillor Armstrong, for.
Thank you. Councillor Coburn.
Councillor Coburn, for.
Thank you. Councillor Daniels.
Councillor Daniels, for.
Thank you. Councillor Fairbrother.
Councillor Fairbrother, for.
Thank you. Councillor Granger.
Councillor Granger, for.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkbride.
Councillor Kirkbride, for.
Thank you. Councillor Lynch.
Councillor Lynch, for.
Thank you. Councillor Mumby.
Councillor Mumby, for.
Thank you. Councillor Semple.
Councillor Semple, for.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Councillor Smith, for.
Thank you. Councillor Tyson.
Councillor Tyson, for.
Thank you. All voted in favour, Chair. 11 votes for, none against. The vote was unanimous. Thank you.
So therefore, I can confirm that the planning application OUT/2020/0013 has been approved with the extra planning condition which was outlined earlier by Mr. Sharp. So thank you. And thank you everybody for attending. Lee, do you think you could switch the YouTube video off, please?
Yeah, Chair. YouTube stream will be stopped.